Sup y'all, and welcome to Cities and Urban Land Use, Parte 12. And in this video we're going to take a look at this essential question. What forces and trends are shaping the current American cities? To begin our investigation into the most recent influences on American cities, we begin with, not geography.
Yes, well!
While suburbanization predated the World War era, the middle and upper class migration away from the central cities accelerated greatly in the post-World War II years. One of the most iconic examples of this was the establishment of Levitt towns, named after the owner of the company that produced them. They were large suburban developments created for returning veterans and their families. However, they were limited to those of the Caucasian race. At that time, mixed neighborhoods were even less popular than today. The communities offered attractive alternatives to the cramped central city locations and apartments. The first was built in New York, and the second in Pennsylvania. Through the GI Bill, GI means General Infantry, qualified vets returning from World War II received money towards education, starting a business, or received housing assistance, which greatly led to increased suburbanization. Follow this with the economic boom of the 1950s, especially in the areas of manufacturing, the emergence of the Eisenhower highway system, and couple all this with inexpensive gasoline that was mostly produced domestically, and the suburbs became a distinct American phenomenon. Today, most urban areas have distinct ethnic neighborhoods. However, this was not always the case. In the post-World War II era, suburbanization remained a largely white phenomenon. But even before Levitt towns and other suburban areas were propping up, African Americans and their families had been moving northward and westward from the South for decades, through what had been called the Great Migrations. A practice that was utilized by banks and homeowner loan corporations was redlining, in which they would often mark a red line on a map to delineate areas where they would not offer a mortgage or a loan. The term refers to discrimination against a group of people, often by race or sex. Other services were sometimes also denied, based on race, such as the access to insurance, healthcare, some businesses, or even jobs. Another nefarious practice was blockbusting, utilized by some U.S. realtors and developers to encourage whites to sell their houses at a loss. In some instances, the realtor would sell a home or series of homes to racial minorities such as blacks or Hispanics, and imply to the white homeowners that the real estate property values were declining in their previously racially segregated neighborhood. Some whites sold their homes due to racist inclinations, however others left to protect their investments. Regardless, turnover would increase and the realtor would make more money off commission, while the companies would rake in even more profits. The Great Migrations, along with tactics like blockbusting, led to white flight, in which many whites moved from the Northeast and Midwest towns and cities into the South. Looking at this map from the 1970s, you can see the historical patterns reflected in the decline of white populations in major Midwestern cities like Chicago, Detroit, and Cleveland, with increased in-migration into surrounding counties. Recall that agglomeration is the clustering or nucleation of people or businesses for mutual benefits of close proximity. By contrast, degglomeration is a process of industrial deconcentration in response to businesses seeking cheaper labor and production costs in order to earn greater profit. It is an outcome of technological advances in the U.S., as we have increasingly shifted from secondary to tertiary economic activities. And this can also be a reaction to increasing costs due to congestion and competition in urban areas. Due to decades of degglomeration, parts of the Northeast and Midwest are known as the Rust Belt, an area affected by economic decline, population loss, and urban decay due to the dwindling of its once thriving industrial sector. Closed shops, abandoned factories, and gutted bus and train terminals indicate a region that has declined from its economically successful past. Especially since the 1970s, there have been zones of abandonment, concentrated in low-income and often minority-dense neighborhoods. Vacant structures and lots can be found around the landscape of a large number of previously industrial cities along the Rust Belt, as well as other cities such as New Orleans. It signals ongoing deindustrialization and depopulation, and also concerns residents because of its vulnerability to illegal activity, trashing, and crime. In cities like Detroit, an oversupply of housing units has urged many urban planners and policymakers to right-size the city to current decline-oriented population levels, for instance, by demolishing and removing buildings or infrastructure. Nonetheless, many buildings remain abandoned, such as Book Tower in the historic Detroit downtown district. In New Orleans, after Hurricane Katrina, even after 5 years, the city still had a vacancy rate of around 25%. Charity Hospital that you see here sustained severe flood damage during the storm. The hospital was effectively shut down, and its doors have not been reopened since. However, the loss of factories and secondary jobs does not mean a city or region cannot rebound and become economically successful again. As you can see on these maps, while manufacturing jobs left several metropolitan areas, some regions, like Bosnia-Wash, have revitalized their economies through shifting toward more tertiary, quaternary, and quinary activities. Of course, their location along the eastern seaboard has been an obvious advantage. Cities also engage in commercialization to renovate their CBDs or central city. Themed areas, often around waterfronts or aesthetically pleasing venues, are created. This may include shopping centers, parks, marketplaces, or sports complexes. Commercialization attracts tourists, however, cities benefit most from permanent residents. Through gentrification, individuals and companies buy up and rehabilitate houses, raising the housing value of the neighborhood and attracting higher income residents. On the other hand, lower income residents are often evicted due to increased rent, leading them to search for more affordable accommodations. A great deal of new architecture follows postmodernism, a reaction to the sterile and alienating feeling of the industrial architecture of the modern or industrial era. Before 9/11, the World Trade Center was sometimes criticized for its boxy appearance. Postmodernism uses older historical styles and eclecticism, combining pleasant-looking forms and colors to create spaces that are more people-friendly and aesthetically pleasing. Trends out in the suburbs include an increase in gated communities or fenced-in neighborhoods with controlled access gates. In the US, about 16 million people, or 6% of the population, live in these communities, which makes spaces defensible from undesirable activities such as break-ins, drug dealing, and prostitution. Other trends involve remodeling through tear-downs, or houses that owners buy with the intention of tearing them down to either flip or remodel with the intent of selling the home at a profit, or the owner intends to build a much larger home on the property. And these are sometimes called McMansions because of their super size and their similar look. Now, cities grow in one of three directions: up, vertically into multi-story buildings, out, toward the periphery, as in the case of sprawl, or in, by utilizing available space. The latter has been the push by many U.S. cities for several decades now, and this has led to infill, which is the use of land within the city or suburban area for further construction. In cities, it focuses on the reuse and repositioning of obsolete or underutilized buildings and vacant sites. Infill buildings are constructed between existing buildings. For example, the buildings in the center of the image from Lancaster were built on what was an open area. Suburban infill is virtually the same thing, only the focus is on filling in unused spaces to reduce sprawl. An approach specifically designed to work against sprawl is known as smart growth. The goal is to promote sustainability through pro-environment, low-polluting, and energy-saving urban planning. Smart growth attempts to build communities with housing and transportation choices near jobs, shops, and schools to support local economies. We've already seen how green belts are utilized to reduce sprawl and slow the growth of cities, but another smart growth approach is new urbanism, which is a movement that promotes the development of walkable neighborhoods that are often transit-oriented and bicycle-friendly. The city blocks are also created with schools and a diversity of housing and jobs. Celebration, Florida was a community built from the ground up by the Disney Corporation and was designed to represent the iconic and walkable city streets of the 1950s. Another good example of new urbanism is Meisner Park, located in Boca Raton, Florida. Redeveloping an underused mall starting in the early 1990s, a series of walkable shops, restaurants, and apartments was designed, along with a movie theater and museum. Property values increased 14-fold from 1990 to 2002, which also highlights some criticisms. Since smart growth limits construction, it can lead to higher housing prices, congestion, it can restrict property rights, and there are even challenges to its actual cost savings and environmental impact. Understand that while suburbs expanded extensively from the 1940s to the 1980s and continues to expand today, cities have grown in the US, accelerating in the 1990s due to a plethora of reasons. Some already stated, but to sum up, many factors include urban policies, such as tax incentives and subsidies from city and state governments, The gentrification and preservation of historical sites, such as the Stranahan House in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the creation of green spaces, as well as commercialization, including tourist-friendly attractions. Other reasons for the increase in urbanization are economic, with the obvious advantages of agglomeration, such as the concentration of tech companies in Silicon Valley, as well as the Route 128 corridor, which is close to universities such as Harvard and MIT. Cities also provide unparalleled investment opportunities. Plus, we are all humans and prefer face-to-face interaction, no matter what your Snapchatty generation thinks. Cities provide great tourist attractions as well. Demographics can also help us understand the reurbanizing of America by looking at household shifts. For instance, the rise of DINKs, which stands for Double Income, No Kids, or Yuppies, meaning Young Urban Professionals, since many people are getting married later and putting off starting families. With the aging of the baby boom generation and empty nesters who no longer need spacious homes in the suburbs, many are relocating to the cities. Plus, there is the sense of place. Cities offer higher-order experiences and venues such as Times Square, New York City, as well as other special amenities like theaters and zoos. Also, with rising immigration comes the increased pull of ethnic neighborhoods. One final facet of urbanization is NIMBYism, meaning not in my backyard. People believe amenities and opportunities are needed, but often not too close to them. Some developments include things like airports, electric substations, nuclear power plants, and windmills. Finally, there's banana, meaning build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. It's a humorous term used to criticize people who oppose any and all new growth.